Hello and welcome to another episode of The Way I See It. As promised in some previous videos, this is an interview I did with Kira Davis. Now actually she was interviewing me, so it's not quite the same as my other interviews, but as I said before, we had some good back and forth conversation and I really enjoyed it and I hope you will too. I know Kira, we're acquaintances online. I discovered her as a guest on the Babylon Bee podcast at this point now, a year or two ago. And so then I started following her podcast. And then I learned about locals through Dave Rubin, the Rubin Report, that he was creating this new platform. So I got on there, created my own community, discovered through her podcast that she had a community. So I joined it. So I belong to davisnation.locals.com. I also have my community, The Way I See It.locals.com. I would love for you to come join me on there. The way they arrange their platform, you don't have to pay to join or be in a community, but you have to pay in order to post or comment on any of the other posts. So hers is the only one I pay for. If you join, it's about $7 a month. Mine, I set the threshold as low as I possibly could. I would let it be free, but the creators of the app made it so that every community you have to pay for to be active in it. So mine is about $2 a month. It's 10 coins. The way they do it in locals, you buy coins and then your coins go to pay for your subscription to a site. So anyway, come please join us. You can join my community. You can join her community. You can join dozens, hundreds of other communities. A lot of other famous people have communities on locals. You should go check it out and be a part of it and have some engaging conversation where your posts won't be censored and all the things you post are yours. They remain your intellectual property and all that. Also, please remember to like this video at the end or whenever you've had a chance to actually watch it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. Share this video with all of your friends and family and anybody who you think might enjoy it. So without further ado, here is my interview with Kira Davis.
Hi, everybody. Welcome, Davis Nation. This is our first Meet the Community episode of this new series I'm trying out because you guys are the most fascinating people in America. Not me, you guys. And I was struck by how many engaged and accomplished people we had in the room. And I thought, well, why am I the only one doing the talking? There's a lot of people in this room who have experience and do other things. I decided to start with our community member, Rachel Odell, because she is actually a YouTuber as well, and somebody who is really engaged in the area of philosophy and theology. So, Rachel, welcome to Meet the Community, and thanks for being in Davis Nation.
Thank you. I'm like a self-ordained theology and philosophy,
Yeah,
I have my degree. My master's degree is in music education. So
you have a master's, though.
I do.
Yeah.
I taught for a whole year with that master's before I became basically a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I'm the least educated person in Davis Nation, actually. Every time I talk to one of you guys, they're like, I have a PhD, I have a master's. I'm a bachelor's in theater. I don't know.
You're like my husband, though. He has a bachelor's in theater, so
Oh, really? And what does he do now?
He's a writer. He actually is a working actor. He started doing professional theater when he was still in college, and he's been writing for several years. He works for a company called Orange, and they produce children's church curriculum. Well, they produce it for several age levels, but what he does is he writes like Bible story video scripts.
Oh, awesome.
For churches that maybe don't have volunteers to do their Bible story on Sundays or something like that. So if you go on YouTube and look up the So-and-So Show, he's one of the co-hosts of the So-and-So Show.
That's the name of it?
And he's the writer. He writes it. So-and-So Show. In fact, the reason it's called that, it's a funny story, actually. He put that in just as a placeholder when he first pitched, like, the first script or whatever. We'll call it the So-and-So Show. Like we'll come up with the name. And they were like, no, we'll just use that name.
That's funny. Oh, great. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you live and tell us what you do.
I live in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And I grew up about an hour and a half from here in Cartersville, Georgia. So I've only ever lived either in Cartersville or in Lawrenceville. We
And
moved
what
here
area
when
of Georgia is that?
it's just north of Atlanta. So Cartersville is, let's see, I'm mirror imaging here. Cartersville is northwest of Atlanta, and Lawrenceville is northeast of Atlanta.
Okay.
So basically, for me, from where I live now, I just go down, go around the perimeter, go back up, and I'm at my parents' house. So
Nice.
not far. We've lived here in this house ever since we got married in 2003. So
Nice.
lived right here. And let's see. So I've been married since 2003, grew up in Cartersville, went to college near Cartersville. I stayed on campus because as a music major, you really need to be on campus because you have a lot of extracurricular musical things you have to do. But I was close enough to home that like I went home every weekend for church. I stayed at my home church all through college. My first 2 years after college, I was teaching special ed and met Brandon. His brother and sister-in-law went to my church for a while, and his sister-in-law got the idea to set us up. And then we ended up getting married and moving over here because I was going to switch jobs and he was going to keep the job he had, and he was working at a movie theater over here. And he was a professional actor doing a lot of stuff around Atlanta. So we moved here, and then I taught chorus for a few years, middle school chorus.
Oh, fun.
Which was what I wanted to do originally. That's why my degree in music ed was so I could do, because I was
So you kind of
big
were
into
like old school Glee. You were the original Glee.
we weren't a show choir, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, not show choir chorus.
I mean, yeah, I could like teach these middle school to sway or maybe do a little choreography, but we're not doing like dance moves across the stage. Yeah, and then I wanted to, but I was working, and sorry, I get flushed when I get nervous. And when I'm talking about myself, I get nervous. Like if I'm doing one of my YouTube videos, it's not like this. So people will be like, "Are you okay?"
You seem fine to me. You're doing
I'm
great.
totally fine. It may go away,
you.
it may not.
I hear you. We're not even noticed. I didn't even notice.
Oh, good. I was teaching middle school chorus, but it was another county, like 45 minutes away, and I wanted to find a job in Gwinnett. But like with only one chorus teacher per school, it's hard to get a job.
Right.
You know? And Gwinnett was kind of high competition, so I didn't get a job, and so I was just working part time as like a box office assistant at the local professional theater, and then at the end of that year, like I did that for a semester, and at the end of 2008, the economy crashed, and so they're like, we can't afford it, because I was the part-time help. They're like, we can't afford to keep you on. But Brandon and we just found out I was pregnant with my first child, and he was like, well, I'm making more money now than in the beginning. You don't have to work if you want to stay home, so that's what I've done ever since. So I have been a stay-at-home mom. We now have 3 kids. Lydia is finishing up 6th grade, 11 years old. Nehemiah is 10 and he's in 4th grade, and Daisy is 8 and she's in 2nd grade.
All right. Tell me about staying at home, because you have laid out your education and your husband's education, and this is a subject that I actually started to write about it yesterday. And I think I want to tackle this subject in a broader way, because I feel very strongly about, I don't think women are encouraged enough to stay home. Does that sound really like old fashioned? But I don't think not that we should demand it, but I don't think we ever, these days, it seems like we tell women, like, you got to go out there, have your career, do all the traveling before you settle down with kids, blah, blah, blah. That is like the positive reinforcement that we give to women. But I feel like there's not many people out there telling women these days, like, it's actually staying at home is very fulfilling, and it can be a calling, and it's going to be better for your family in most cases. And there's a lot of positives to it. When I stayed at home, I didn't want to make that choice, but I felt like it was the best choice for my kids. I wanted to go out there and be an actress, and I had my grand plan. But when we had kids, my husband and I discussed it, and we said, okay, this is what is going to be best for our family. So I made the sacrifice, and I was shocked that I was so fulfilled by it, that there's nothing quite like putting dinner on the table for your family. And, it's like, I've done something today. It's frustrating, but I've done something. But then there was a part of me, having been raised by strong, independent people, that was like, I'm failing somehow, being at home and not doing extra. And I struggled with that for quite a while. And now, of course, I feel very proud that I made the decision, and I'm glad I did, especially now that my kids are older. What was your journey into stay-at-home momming like?
Yeah, when I was younger, when I was in college, the idea of staying at home was like, no, I'm not going to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, I'm going to have this career. I don't know what I envisioned. Not like I was going to be some sort of famous choral conductor, but I definitely wanted, like, I enjoyed conducting. Even today, if I just stand in the middle of a room and I'm listening to music and I'm, conducting along to the music, it's just a very fulfilling feeling. So, but no, I was like, no, I don't want to stay home. That would be boring. And I had some of my best friends, if they watch this video, I hope they're not offended, but some of my best friends from like high school and growing up at church just got, like, their dream was to get married. And I was like,
right. I ran into a couple of those girls at college, and I'd be like,
what else?
You're here to find a husband? Yeah.
Like, that can't just be your identity. But now, like, they've been married over 20 years. Their kids are graduating high school, and they've never looked back, to my knowledge, and regretted it. One of them got married right out of high school, and then her twin sister got married a couple of years later. And she had done some college, but I don't think she even graduated with a bachelor's or anything. I'm not sure. But, yeah, here's the thing. Whether you choose to stay home or to work, I think you have to make sure your identity is in Christ. And if someone's not a Christian, obviously they're going to be like, well, what about me?
Right.
Your identity can't be in your job,
right,
or your children, like whichever side you choose. Right.
Well, that's an interesting point, because there's a lot of people. There's the flip side of this, is that there are a lot of stay-at-home moms whose identity is their children, and it's like that. It can be equally as rough as just completely ignoring your children.
Yeah.
You need to have some identity out of that.
I think to be a stay-at-home mom or a working mom, or somewhere in between, because some women are just doing part-time work or freelance work or whatever.
Or like me, yeah.
Yeah. So I just think you have to focus on, again, this is coming from a Christian perspective, what I'm doing, I need to make sure I'm glorifying God in what I'm doing, and then allow Him to hand me whatever it is He wants to hand me, or take from me whatever He wants to take from me. There have been times when I've lamented that, like, my husband gets to live out his dream. He's a working actor. He's a writer. He's got all this creative outlet. And me, I'm like, I'm going to go film a YouTube video. I've sung in the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra chorus. That was kind of when I left the church that had a choir and went to a church that didn't have a choir. And I wasn't good enough to be paid to be on stage.
Oh, dang.
Because my voice was not, like that pop rock voice that they were looking for.
Right.
So I went and got into the ASO chorus, and that was kind of my outlet. So, if you're a stay-at-home mom, that's another thing. You need to find what brings you joy. If there's something that you like, well, I'm not doing this professionally, because professionally I'm raising these children.
Right.
Work with your husband about finding ways to. Some women don't. I mean, like, some women are totally, like, just, I'm invested in my kids, and we're home, like you asking about homesteading on,
I know.
Locals, like, we're homesteading, and this is the most fulfilling life ever.
It's my dream. It's my fantasy. That's why I was asking. I was like, I do have this fantasy of being, like, a completely competent homesteader, just taking it off. And,
we've been reading through the Little House on the Prairie books, my oldest daughter and I, since she was in 4th grade. We're like going into the 6th or 7th book now. Little Town on the Prairie. And like she makes me think of Laura Ingalls Wilder. I think she would be completely happy if we moved out into the middle of nowhere and it was just our family. And part of me, I'm like, if I could learn to do that, that might be fun sometimes.
Right. I think
but other times it would be boring. I'd be like, I want to go see some people. Like, I'm such an extrovert. I'd want to go see people and do things. But there's something very fulfilling about being able to just focus on your family.
One of the things that Rachel did, which huge applause for you. She went to her school board meeting last night, even though you homeschool, right?
One kid I homeschool.
Oh,
the other two are in public school. So yeah, and I just went to the first one ever.
Gwinnett County.
Yes, Gwinnett County.
And she posted videos. You can scroll through the newsfeed and see them. She posted videos, and I was like, whoa, it is like popping off in there. Like, she was like, I'm going to the school board meeting. And in my mind, I had it's Georgia. And I don't know, in my mind, I had this like small little schoolhouse meeting or whatever. It was like full on riot, man. Like, people were popping off in there. And some of the video that you shot, it started, there was a gentleman at the back and he was fussing at the school board, but I couldn't tell exactly what he was fussing about. Was there an argument going on about masks? What was the meeting centered on?
Well, the purpose of the meeting was not necessarily to discuss any of the things that, the way it is, they'll have their agenda and they'll go through and people can sign up to speak and address them, but that's like at the end of the meeting. And then they don't necessarily have to, they can just hear what you say and then they go on to the next speaker. And they don't have to like make a decision about anything that anybody says. Right. It's just the chance for parents to have feedback.
Comments.
Yeah. So, you know, the whole thing for this, there's this big group of people that were coming, and some folks were coming wearing masks on purpose. Their purpose was, we need these masks. And then there's this whole much larger group that were there, that were part of this Unmask Our Children movement, as well as they were wanting to get up there and talk about CRT. This one woman talked about social and emotional learning, which they're trying to incorporate into summer school. And she's like, my child has to go to summer school and she needs to get her math and her reading up. She doesn't
gotta go to school in the summer. Teach her.
And she's like, the social and emotional learning is just CRT disguised as being called social and emotional learning anyway. So there was like 500 people. I mean, maybe 500. I said there was 150, but there was the whole front, like the one picture I posted of that was the back half of the room was most of these parents. And then like if I had gone to the front half, you'd have seen a lot of, there were several high schoolers there that were being honored for some sort of achievement in like foreign language or something. It wasn't even like a regular academic honor night. It was something very specific. So there was all these people there, and so this whole group of folks were like, we're not going to wear our masks because the whole purpose of us being here is to argue against the masks. And there's one guy that was in that first video. He was saying that he had called the governor's office or something like that multiple times that day to make sure that we would not be required to wear masks because this is a government building. And they were like, no, you should not have to. You should not have to. And of course, then some people on Twitter, you know, who know more legal stuff than me, I'm sure, because everybody on Twitter is an expert. Right. They're like, well, actually, the school board can make its own rules. And I guess that's true if you could say, well, there's no law in the state for XYZ, but you go into a restaurant that's like no shoes, no shirt, no service, or something like that. I mean, they have the right to set certain rules in place. So I'm not sure whether or not they had to require us to wear masks or not. I mean, if they had that call to make, but these parents were not having it. And so that's what the one guy standing up, he was saying, you're in violation of the governor who said we don't have to wear masks.
Yeah. No, and he cited all the, you know, the policy and the legislation. He came prepared.
Yeah. So yeah, there's an article about it today in the Gwinnett Daily Post and maybe something in the AJC, I'm not sure, which is the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Yeah, Gwinnett is the largest county in the state school system because in Atlanta there's a separate Fulton County and Atlanta City schools. So even though if that was all combined, it would be the largest, it's not the largest because it's broken up into two different school systems. So Gwinnett is like almost 1 million people in our county.
Wow. And yeah, that's a lot.
So almost over like between 150 and 200,000 students in our schools.
Gwinnett, you said this was your first meeting, right? That you've been to, your first. Okay. So first I'll ask you, is Gwinnett going through all of the CRT madness the way that every other school board? Are parents starting to get wind of it and pushing back? Is that what you're seeing? And is that why you went to your first meeting? Why did you go?
Okay, I got invited to join this Facebook group, Parents Against Masks or something like that. And so I was like, sure, because I don't want my kids to have to wear masks at school, so I'll join this Facebook group. Okay. So then they're all putting this stuff on constantly, and it's like, call this person, this is your local, or tell your principal to pass along this message to the school board, or email your school board. They'll give out all this information all the time, or post relevant articles, that kind of stuff. And then they were like, we're going to have this group to go to the meeting. One of those members, Courtney Ann Taylor, was already recorded last month and was on like Fox News and stuff.
Oh.
She got picked up nationally and interviewed. I saw her being interviewed on like Fox and Friends or something. So she was there. She's kind of the de facto leader of that group. I'm not sure if she's officially the leader or just became the leader because she became the face. So she was one of only 58 people who signed up to speak last night.
Wow.
58. And out of those 58, by the time they got to that part of the meeting, I mean, the meeting started at 7, and they didn't have this public comment section until after 9:30.
They do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do that on purpose.
And they had left. They had told us, we're not going to meet in here because y'all aren't wearing masks.
Oh, my God.
We're going to go down the hall to this training room and do this first part, which is the honoring of these students and doing all this other business. So they patched through the sound into the big room where we stayed. But it was when they left to go do their meeting, there was a lot of, I don't want to say a bad word on here, but I came home to my husband, I said it was a you-know-what show. Uh-huh. A lot of that kept on going after they left the room because you had this one woman walking around with her phone from like claiming she was from the NAACP. She was live streaming on Facebook calling us all white supremacists, and I'm like, that can't be about the masks. Maybe that's about the CRT stuff.
Yeah.
And then there was like WSB, which is our Channel 2 Action News. It's our ABC affiliate. Mm-hmm. They were there. Someone was there interviewing some folks. I haven't seen that, so I don't know how that came out on the news. And then, so there's a lot, and that was that same woman, the NAACP woman, stopped at one point and started going, police! What? Police! And I
oh my gosh,
like,
this is like so dramatic. There's so much going on in the school board meeting.
And everybody was 5 feet away from her, like no one was touching her. She was there previously too, like last month. I think someone said she got kicked out last month because of her own antics.
An agitator.
Yeah, so I think this was just even a bigger crowd than what was there previously, but they've been having building crowds because over the last 30 years, I've been here for about half the time that this has been happening. The county has grown exponentially. It has exploded in population. And so because of that, the demographics have been changing. So, and because of that, the school boards have been changing. Mm-hmm. And so now the most recent election brought in like 2 new people who were like lefties in addition to someone else. So like the balance of politics in the school board shifted. And so now they're wanting to make all these calls for next year. What? And the parents are like, hold up.
Yes. Well, this is why I have been telling people, like, if you have the time and the inclination, you need to get into your local positions. Like, the blue state voters are coming your way and you can't do anything about it. I mean, you can't stop people from moving where they want to move. It's America. So if they're coming and they've already ruined their own cities, they're coming your way to find a better life. And for many, many reasons, they do not make the connections between their votes and the cost of living. And so it's so important because we don't think about our school boards that much, but look at what happened to your school board in just a few years' time as the demographics shifted, just with the election of 2 people. Yeah. Just with the election of 2 people. So I would encourage people, based on Rachel's story here, not only to get involved in your school board. I get it. Not everyone can run for a local office, like no pressure, but at least know who the people you're voting for are and make sure that the people around you know as well. So maybe you help out on campaigns. Maybe you're like, oh, I want you to know that this member of the PTA that you see every day at school who seems so nice is also a proponent of critical race theory. And she wants to make sure that any white kids that go to school have to sit in a different classroom or, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just, I was really encouraged to see that you went, because to me, and I'm starting to see more people do that, but to me, it's like, you just laid out your life for us. Like, you don't have a lot of time. You got a lot of stuff going on, but to take the time to go and monitor what's going on. We need more of that, because like you just said, this stuff slipped in under y'all's noses, and then by the time people started noticing what was happening, it was too late. These people are entrenched now. And so now you're going to have to work harder to get to dig them out. Did you get the sense last night, if you could like estimate, what was the sense of the amount of numbers of people that were there to complain versus to support what the school board was doing?
The numbers of people who were complaining against masks and CRT was far larger than the ones who were pro. And it was interesting to sit there and listen to all these different people come up, and about every third or fourth person would be someone that was not there for the unmasking and anti-CRT. But they weren't necessarily getting up there to say, we need CRT and we need masks. They were getting up there for other things, like this one person was talking about. See, one of the things they've done with this new school board is they've now fired our superintendent.
Oh.
Although he's still there for like till June, but he's like a lame duck and he's old. He should have retired. We're kind of like, the problem is not that he's leaving, it's just that y'all disrespectfully kicked him out.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so one guy got up there and he was like, our next superintendent needs to be yada, yada, yada. And he talks about things like diversity and inclusion and the things that you're kind of like, these are the telltale signs.
Yeah. We're running out of time, and I don't want to run out of time before we get to what you do on your YouTube channel, because I actually am a fan of your YouTube channel, Rachel. Woo-hoo. And it is a channel devoted to theology, and you seem to be a theology enthusiast. You say you're not educated, but you're an enthusiast. I am too. I love apologetics. I'm really fascinated by making reasonable arguments for God, as well as...
You do a good job of that on your podcast, too.
Thank you.
Because you do apologetics even in the non-religious sense, right? I mean, because you take it over to political, but it's apologetics, essentially.
But you know what I like, and this is what I like about the little community that we're developing here, is I love curious people. It's my favorite thing. I always tell my son's 19, and I always tell him, like, my favorite thing about you is how curious you are. You're always wanting to try new experiences. You always want to learn new things. I'll go into his room and find him looking up stuff on the internet just about, I didn't know where, what a red dwarf star was. So I looked it up, and I love curious people, because curious people are thinking people. And I love that you took your curiosity and put it on a YouTube channel. And I know that it's become so cliche, like these, everybody's got a YouTube channel, everybody's got a podcast, but why not? If if you can talk to people, and if one person watches it or 1,000 people watch it, if you have something to say, why not? And the avenue is there and it's free. Why not get out there and say something? Tell us what the name of your channel is, but like, tell us some of the ideas that you discuss on there, exactly what you're doing on there, because it's interesting stuff.
It's called The Way I See It. Technically, it's called Rachel Odell, because I created the channel like 11 years ago. And they don't let you change the name.
I know. I have the same issue. My channel is just Kira Davis, because I think it might be my email, like Kira Davis 422 or something. And I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't know I'd never be able to change this.
Whenever I got over 100 subscribers, I could change it, but I couldn't just pick whatever.
Right.
Like, they only gave me a limited choice. And so one of them was just to take off. When I first created it, I by fortune's chance, thank you to God, not fortune, but at any rate, I chose Rachel Odell 6879, which is pretty easy to remember. That's when I was born. Mm-hmm. So, but now I just took off the 6879, so it's just youtube.com/Rachel Odell, without the apostrophe. So it's just RACHELODELL, and then, but the name of the little show I started back in March of last year was called The Way I See It, And I don't know why I came up with that name. I was just talking about things going on in the world and like the way I see it. So that's why.
Yeah. I
Why I
mean,
called
just
it that.
listen to yourself is named that because I would hear people and I'd be like, are you even listening to what you're saying right now? Just listen to yourself. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then I got the idea to like start talking to some of my friends and I wanted to interview them and I wanted to find out, well, why do you see the things the way you see it? Because I thought if I can talk to a lot of different kinds of people who maybe have different kinds of political beliefs or different backgrounds, so then that kind of helps. First of all, they have interesting stories, which I may not have known. I mean, I even interviewed my own father and I learned stuff,
Oh, wow. Yeah. Cool.
So there was that aspect of it. So like on the channel there's a playlist of the interviews, which if you give me permission, this will be one of the interviews, even though
Of
you are
course.
interviewing me. It's like
Absolutely.
there's the interviews and then the other stuff is mostly just me talking about sometimes I'm talking about current events. Like I did one talking about Ahmaud Arbery,
Hmm.
after
I
that
watched
whole
that
thing
one.
came out. And then I did one talking about justice, whether or not Breonna Taylor had gotten justice and what I thought justice looked like based on how our court system works.
Hmm.
But then a lot of it, I also do just theological things like we're going to talk about the doctrine of election.
I actually love that part.
Buckle up.
I love it. That's the stuff that fascinates me the most. And frankly, what happened to me this year, I know you've seen me complaining on our wall, but like because our church is closed and my church is only just open, and I was really disappointed with how they handled COVID. Like
Mm,
strip clubs and casinos were open here, but our churches were closed, and you
yeah.
didn't even mount a fight. Like we come from a very wealthy church. I live in the wealthy suburbs of Orange County now, and the churches has we have a church that we have famous people in our church, like we have a lot of very wealthy and well-known people in our church, and we could have mounted a fight, at least hired a lawyer, and been like, tell us why we can't be open if we
Could you
can.
like piggyback on John MacArthur's church and be like, we're going to do what they're going to do?
Well, and they seemed to be annoyed by John MacArthur's church, even the leadership did. And so that laid bare to me a lot of other things that the shine of the church was covering up, like doctrine, and like theology. And we're what they call, well, I know you know this term, we're a seeker church, seeker friendly, which means you don't dig into some of the really hard stuff too much from the pulpit. You just want to welcome people in and then ease them
And
into,
don't tell them this, but there's some sort of bait and switch that
right,
maybe they'll figure out for themselves and they won't be mad at us that we didn't tell them about it to begin with.
right. It seems like wrong, but I guess I we left. I said I can't go back. I don't think that this church has the best interests of the congregation in mind, and B, I'm not sure what's going on with the doctrine over there. And so people in my life group, a few of them had moved over to Saddleback,
Mm-hmm.
which is the other kind of local mega church around here. And Saddleback had been closed through all of COVID. And I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to be out there, Rachel.
I haven't, but I've read The Purpose Driven Life like 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, Saddleback campus, thanks to a purpose driven life, is
Yeah.
like Disneyland. I mean, it's that big.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need there's a cart that takes you from the parking lot to the sanctuary, to the main sanctuary. It's that big.
Yeah.
And their whole campus was closed. They didn't even do outdoor services throughout the whole year. And then this weekend, I found out that Rick Warren is actually, our friends left Saddleback because Rick Warren is set to announce that he's going to start placing women in the pulpit. And so that's a huge shift. That's a huge move. And so to me, I'm seeing that there is a doctrinal famine, I think, in Christianity, whether you're Reformed or whatever, whatever your sect of Christianity is. I think there's a deficit here. And I'm guilty as anyone, but that's what I like about your channel.
There's been a big schism, as I said in a previous video. I feel like every time I say that, it's a pleasing word to say. There's been a big schism that's happened this year, I think, and it's had to do with a couple of different things, COVID being one of them, and how churches treated the physical gathering of the church, which as I said in one of my videos, is very important. I think biblically, there's a need to physically gather. Even if you say we're going to do spread out, we're going to wear masks or whatever.
Yeah.
You need to be there because, as I said in the video, at least before, even if you were one of those kind of people who just like to go and sit at the back, people could look and see that you're there. If you're just going online, no one knows whether you're there on Zoom. So there's that. Or if you're watching it on YouTube live stream, like no one knows who's watching it on the YouTube live stream. So there was the COVID, and then there's the whole CRT thing. This is all, it's really pushing apart the churches that are, and it doesn't matter whether they're Reformed or Arminian, which if you want to get technical, this is kind of the other.
Go to Rachel's YouTube channel to find out more about the difference between.
They're all Protestants. None of these are Catholics, okay? But within the Protestants, there's like the Reformed Calvinists, and then there's the Arminians. But you've got this kind of group over here that are saying we have to be willing to be separate from the culture. And I mean, we want to love the culture, we want to reach out to the culture, but we have to be willing to be shunned by them if we take a biblical stand. And then this group over here that's like, well, we're seekers and we want to be relevant. The problem is you're going to keep following the culture and following the culture further and further away from the Bible. And Jesus said, the road that leads to destruction is wide. Like if you're following after them, you're following the wrong direction, right? And if you're expecting that they're all going to want to become Christians, you're ignoring what Jesus said, which is only a few people are going to find this narrow gate.
Why would anybody want to join the church if the church is just a slightly more strict version of the lives that they're already living? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like here in California, there are people who say, we never run good Republicans here. Not yet. Hopefully that'll change soon. But people will say, well, Republicans are too far to the right in California. And because California is so blue, a Republican candidate really needs to move to the center. Republicans that always run as conservatives, and that's what sinks them. But to me, I'm like, no, they're just bad candidates. Why would any Democrat vote for a Democratish Republican when they can just vote for a Democrat, you know? Yeah. And it's the same thing with church. Why would anybody choose Jesus if you can just choose like the nicer things about Jesus and still live life the way that you want to live? You know, it's not about making people comfortable where they are. I would say Jesus actually makes you quite uncomfortable with where you are. And that's sort of the point.
One of the videos I've done was about Matthew chapter 10, and without going into all the details, if you just take 5 minutes and read Matthew chapter 10, that's kind of one of the hardest passages of crazy things Jesus said, that you're like, he gave all these parables about how, you know, these people are going to be thrown into the pit of hell at the end of time and that kind of stuff. And one of those things that you can't, that's not just the nice Jesus that wants you to feel good about yourself and not feel any shame. Jesus said some hard things. I mean, he said some hard things for people who consider themselves to be religious, who might be just hypocritical. But he said a lot of hard things for the world, who just wants to think that we're all naturally good and God God loves us. And if we just realize his love for us, we'll go to heaven. That's not what Jesus said, you know. So
I have been grieved by Critical Race Series incursion into the church, and I cannot believe how many people are embracing it. Black liberation theology is not that odd to find in the Black church, and I just kind of always took it for granted that it was there. And so, you know, my father-in-law is a pastor, so I was just always a part of his church, and he's solid. So we never had.
I've heard his interviews with you.
Yeah,
he sounded really good.
No, yeah. He's awesome. He's the best. And so we never had to worry about that stuff, even though there might have been many people in our congregation who kind of leaned towards that. He never indulged it. For him, it's gospel first. You know, that's what you preach from the pulpit. That's what God has me here for. But to see this work its way into the wider church, this is why I'm always warning people, like, what happened? You need to pay attention to what's happening in the Black community. We're the canaries in the coal mine. what is bad for us will be bad for all of us eventually. That's why we should be caring about what's going on in the Black community. And it's the same thing. Black liberation theology came into our churches, and now it's starting to spread out into y'all's churches, our church, everybody else's church. And I can't believe how many people that I respected as thought leaders and theologians in the doctrine of Christianity, I can't believe how many people are openly embracing it as godly, and it's just the total opposite. It speaks to the opposite of everything in the gospel.
It's part of the problem too, is that culturally Christianity has become it's lost its cachet, or whatever you want to call that, with the culture.
Cultiness.
Yeah. It used to be that you could get by with being sort of a nominal Christian because the culture at large, even if you were kind of comfortable in it, it was not so antithetical to Christianity. Mm-hmm. Whereas now it's not like that. So I think that's part of the problem you're running into. And a lot of folks like you during COVID, they were like, I realized this church isn't doing what I feel like it should be doing biblically. And so they've left and gone to other churches, smaller churches usually.
Yeah, so I'm looking for smaller church.
They want to be known and seen.
I know. I thought that was going to be when we first moved here, because we moved from a small church and then we moved to like a mega church, and that's what my husband wanted. He grew up.
And mega churches are fun. I mean,
oh yeah, in California, it's almost how you have to operate because it's just so expensive here. Yeah. It's hard for a church to hold property, so you need like a larger congregation. It's just the way it is. But yeah, we were at first pleased to be in a big church where you didn't have to see the same 5 people ever and then be indicted when you didn't show up. Like, oh, we missed you on Sunday. And but you know what? During COVID, I was sad that wasn't there. I was sad that nobody missed me. I was sad that nobody wondered where I was or how I was doing. And we're the only, like, some of the only Black people in our congregation. We went through the whole BLM summer without one person reaching out. And our leadership team is real hot and heavy on the social justice stuff now. And so, and I thought, well, geez, not even one of them reached out to see how we were doing, or here's a great opportunity for us. The streets are exploding in rage right now. Here's a great opportunity for us to take the gospel to the streets, to take the gospel to the people and share what real reconciliation looks like. And we're doing like drive-by school supply drives, and calling that progress. I've been grossly disappointed. Do you follow Tim Keller at all? Have you noticed the slide with him?
Not necessarily. I don't know. I feel like when I read from him, like the blog post that he did like a week ago, that I don't know if you saw, the forgetting, what is it? Something about forgiving. Forgiveness is like becoming passe.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And no one even who claims to be Christians, like, it's seen as like this bad thing because we deserve to be heard and we deserve justice and whatever. And it's like, but if you're offering forgiveness, you can't be demanding justice necessarily. So stuff like that is still really good. And one of the original things that led me into where I am theologically was listening to some of his sermons before he retired a few years ago, and I could listen to them more. Because he would do one every week, right? He was preaching at church every Sunday.
I loved them. I loved
So I don't know. I feel like he's trying so hard. Because here's the thing. We developed this false schism. There's that word again. Between churches that want to preach the gospel and churches that want to do social justice. And anytime someone says something that's remotely social justice-y, we're like, you're all CRT. You're just social gospel. You're not preaching the real gospel, which is Jesus wants to save sinners, and we all need to get right with God. That's what we really need. You've got certain churches, and I feel like Timothy Keller's trying to be one of these people that does want to preach the gospel. Like, that is the key. But God also wants us to do justice. He wants us to do these other things and serve the poor and serve our communities, even if they don't necessarily come to Jesus, right? Like, during the plagues in Rome, the Christians weren't going around helping people and saying, I'll help you if you admit you're a sinner and believe in Jesus. Like, they were just helping. Right. So I think I found a great church, the church I'm part of now, which does effectively preach the gospel every Sunday and can tie Jesus into the whole Bible, because Jesus said the whole Bible's about me. And, you know, the story of
one story.
Joseph and the coat of many colors is not just the story of persevering through hardships, right? Like there's a link there to what God was doing through Christ in the world. Like everything in the Bible can be linked to Christ. And I feel like my preacher does a great job of showing that. But our church also wants to serve the community. We're like in the heart of downtown Lawrenceville, and there's a lot of lower income people around us. And I feel like maybe Timothy Keller is just, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough of the details, but I feel like he gets a bad rap.
I agree with you. I have a friend who's like really pissed off at Keller right now because she feels like he's getting squishy, and she's always running him down. And I'm like, well, I haven't noticed this. Show me like what you see. And she posted a couple of things, and it was exactly, I think my impression was exactly yours, which was like, I don't know, like I could see how if you're nervous about this, that you could look at this and be like, uh-oh, here we go, here's that slide. But having followed Keller for so long, I know that he works really hard to straddle the line between secular reasoning and like connecting that to gospel living. And so to me, I hear him giving people a reason to, using the language of other people to give them a reason to turn to Christ. That's what I'm seeing. So I'm glad you said that, because I'm like, I don't know. I'm not ready to jump off the Tim Keller wagon just yet, but
that's the apologist in you. That's the reason it appeals to you, because you're an apologist.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I love all Tim Keller stuff. And we did a fantastic group study on apologetics in my life group using Tim Keller's videos, and they're fantastic. Okay, we're running out of time. I have one question left to ask you.
Man, we've been going for a daggum hour.
I know. I always say, like, you know what? I'm just going to do this interview. It's going to be super quick. And I'm like, well, like, I love to talk to it. Y'all, I love to talk. This is not, like, Kira is not fake. I love to talk. This interview would be 3 hours long.
Well, so do I. And if you were interviewing someone who's on YouTube, you know you're getting yourself into it.
So I'm always like, that's why I'm always apologizing on the show too. Like, I'm like, oh, I know this is running long, but it's like, you guys have no idea how much I cut before you
know, it's interesting to us. It's entertaining, at least, when you go off script, you know.
Good. I'm glad, because somebody did write on the comments the other day. I really like Kira's show, but sometimes she takes a little long to get to the point. I was like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, but that's sort of my thing, you know. I'm taking the long way around. I've taken the long way around a lot in my life. But thank you for talking to me. And this is proof that I genuinely find the members of Davis Nation interesting. It's not just a thing of, oh, hey, give me your money and then I'll just give you some bonus content. Like, I genuinely find the conversations that happen in that room interesting. And I've learned stuff that I've used on the show even. And even from your YouTube channel, I have like looked at your YouTube channel and some of your analysis of doctrine and theology and really like absorbed that. And so y'all, if y'all are out there in Davis Nation right now and you have projects going on that you think I might find interesting, let me know. I'd love to talk to you about them. And I want to highlight anybody who is willing to get out there and share their voice. It might not be the most eloquent voice. It might not be the most, you know, you're not going to get like be a Dave Rubin and get 2 million views. But I always say this, that the most important voice in America is yours. So first of all, thank you, Rachel, for sharing your voice with us today. Now, let me ask you this question. You're stranded on a desert island. You can take one politician with you and one celebrity and the clothes on your back. Dead or alive.
Okay.
Dead or alive. One politician and one celebrity and the clothes on your back. You know, you're not taking anything else with you.
Not my husband or my kids.
Nope, they're gone. They are lost to you forever. You will see them on the other side.
They're on their own desert island.
Yes, they're on their own desert island.
Politician. Oh my goodness. I mean, like, I guess I should say George Washington.
Well, he seems irascible.
You know who seems interesting to me is Ronald Reagan, because he was an actor. And the speeches I've seen, and see, I was born in 1979, so he was the first president I remember, but I was a child, so I really don't know the details, other than like my dad watched World News Tonight every night of my life. So as like I kind of just picked up random headlines and like happenings in the world as a child, but I don't know a lot of the specifics about him or his presidency. But I guess in my mind, I've always revered him because I was a child when he was president. He's the first one I remember.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would pick Ronald Reagan to be my politician.
Well, he's also a rancher, so he had some skills with farming and
he helped me out, help me survive.
Sustainability. Yeah.
And what was the other one? You said politician?
And a celebrity. Yep.
I don't like any celebrities.
Well, you're stuck with one. Pick one. Who do you want? You're stuck
and
with
it can't be like a political pundit like you or Dave Rubin or Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, I mean, it can be whoever you consider a celebrity, sure.
Yeah, okay, celebrity status.
Yep. Just not a political celebrity because you've already picked a politician.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like not a politician celebrity, I mean. But yeah. You definitely don't want to be stuck with me on a desert island. I will be completely useless. I will probably.
I gotta pick somebody who'd be entertaining, though.
Right? Well, you have Ronald Reagan. He's an actor, and he can tell you amazing stories. Can you imagine how many stories that guy has? You could just soak them up all day.
Maybe this just came to me out of the blue, and it's not even something I've really thought about. But the more I'm thinking about it, the
you
more
don't think about this stuff every day.
Kenneth Branagh. Isn't that random? Kenneth Branagh, because he's British. I could listen to his voice for a while. Sure. He's a good actor. Like, I just like him in everything I've seen him in. And
so it's funny. Okay, so you've actually set up a little mini theater troupe for your desert island. I like it, Rachel. We know.
And I've done a lot of theater. Like, it's funny. I grew up doing a lot of community theater. See? And when I met Brandon, and he's a professional actor, it just so happened that the way things in my life fell into place, I just didn't have time to do theater anymore. Until a few years ago I was like in the chorus of Thoroughly Modern Millie for some community theater. Nice. Which did it during the summer, and I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, like, I have to plan it with Brandon because he's the money maker, and like we're going to have to figure out childcare for me to do this show. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons I really, and then after that I was in a show, Pump Boys and Dinettes, which is a small musical. And it was in Norcross, which is a little town down the road here in Gwinnett. And it's another community theater show, and I loved it. Oh my gosh, I loved it. But that's my only. So yeah, I could act with Kenneth Branagh and Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, or you could write a little musical, conduct you'd have access to. Now you have all the time in the world to be a chorus conductor. That's right. A chorus of two. Yeah. Okay, so your desert island is going to be the entertainment.
Me and two men.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Whatever y'all get up to, that's your business over there. Oh, good. Okay, Rachel, tell everybody where they can find you online, where they can find your stuff.
Oh, my. Well, obviously YouTube. I have a link tree. You know, a link tree, which is like this one link that it's this website, you click on it, and then you can see a bunch of different links to other things. Because I have a blog on WordPress. I will. There we go.
Yeah, just look it
Rachel Odell or RGGal220, because like on Instagram, I'm RGGAL220, RGGal220. But all of those different links are on that link tree link.
Right.
But for now, just go to youtube.com/Rachel Odell.
RACHEL.
And from there, any of my videos, in the descriptions, I have all those other links too. Like in the description of every video, I have my blog link and my other social media links.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us here at Davis Nation. I hope you guys enjoyed meeting Rachel. And I know that I've always enjoyed our discussions, and now I enjoy you even more. So I hope we get to like meet up in person someday.
Talking to you in person was kind of like when I talked to you when you're doing your podcast. That's right. I'm responding back to you. I'm like,
oh, that's great. That's actually good to know, because I imagine you responding to me when I'm talking. So it's good to know that I'm actually not crazy. People are shouting at their devices.
I'm hoping to come to Cleveland if you do that live.
Yeah, I am only waiting on the restaurant or the bar to get back to me on this date. So all I know right now is either the 22nd, 23rd, or 24th. It'll be one of those days. So yeah. You got to depend on other people to get back to you, and some folks are on CP time, but that's a whole different thing. CP
That
time is colored people's time. If you don't know what it is, folks.
that's I said something about that one time, not to a black person.
Mhm.
I made a comment about it to someone, and they were upset that I said that. I'm like,
Mhm.
they say it like I'm
Real.
not. I'm just saying this person was late, and they've kind of. You
I guess
can't, as a
maybe
white person, there's no way I can say it without
you
sounding
can't win.
racist.
You
So,
can't win. Well, I guess maybe because the C stands for colored
yeah.
people. Maybe if you say POC time, people of color time, you can say that. I don't know, but CP time is a real thing. I mean, like every black person
Obviously,
knows what
because
CP
being on time is
racist.
whiteness, right? That's
I
the
was like,
culture of white.
Lord, help us, Jesus, please don't tarry. If now being on time is racist, good grief. You know, sometimes Rachel, I tell my kids, you guys are lucky because you're not going to have to try very hard to be successful in your generation. Just doing the bare minimum is going to look like a lot of work.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's like people are just too much. We could go on for another 3 hours, Rachel, if I don't end it now. So, uh, thank you so much. I'm going to say goodbye now, and I will see you on Davis Nation. And for those of you who are catching this video later on full release, if you liked this conversation, join us over at Davis Nation, davisnation.locals.com. It's a growing community. We have a lot of open and honest discussions over there, and it's still relatively small. So it's a great time to get in because you're going to be able to see all of the conversations that are going on and participate in everything. And you can direct questions at me. I'm very active in there. You know, it's not like I'm just setting y'all loose. I pop in and talk to people. And so if you've ever wondered what's on my mind outside of the show, that's the place to find it. All right, Rachel. Catch you on the flip side.
All right, it was fun.
Thanks. I will
Bye.
talk to you later.